We're live. Remember I told you we're live. We're live now.
We're live now.
We're live now. We're live with episode 72. Tonight I am joined by former petty officer second class, which I learned that the rank you gave me is the old way of saying that.
Okay.
SM2. Jon Bennehoof.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And a little bit like, I don't always have a great intro, but I actually pulled your intro off of Stockhands. So I'm going to read that real quick. John Charles Bennehoof. He doesn't like JC, apparently. John is a retired IBM transformative executive who proudly served the United States Navy with three tours of duty in Vietnam. He has worked in both the private and public sectors. Beginning his civilian career with IBM, John worked on hardware, moved into enterprise systems repair, and later support. He has been a field engineer, systems engineer, test equipment engineer, program manager, and business transformation executive with IBM. John left IBM to pursue an opportunity and advance his career with an independent software vendor before working for the state of Ohio as the deputy CIO for the Department of Taxation. He repatriated to IBM at the end of that administration. Having served in Vietnam, John has an affinity and a commitment to the veteran community. His goal is to pay it back and forward by providing support and solace to fellow veterans.
Boy, that sounds pretty impressive.
Yeah, I know. I was like, holy cow, I got to read that for him. It's a big moment now, but yeah. And hopefully we get to talk about all that. I have a lot of questions about a test equipment engineer. I'm kidding.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, but
whatever you want.
So we always.
I'm here at your pleasure, Jay. But by the way, before we go any further, I want to thank you and everybody involved with this. That I'm impressed that you asked us to be here, and I'm honored. So thank you. I
appreciate that. I'm honored to have you guys. I know what, we'll hopefully talk a lot more about what you do for the veteran community, but the Stockhands guys, I've known for a few years now, and equally honored to have you guys on and hear more about that and have the audience learn more about what you guys are doing here in Central Iowa as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll start off, we always do a quote. This is from President John F. Kennedy. I can imagine no more rewarding a career, and any man who may be asked in this century what he did to make his life worthwhile, I think can respond with a good deal of pride and satisfaction. I served in the United States Navy. I think you might have missed it. Should have been Army, but we'll stick with that. But
I have a joke for you if we can work that in later.
Well, go ahead now. What is it?
So an Army, Marine, a sailor, and an Air Force go up to heaven. They're headed for the pearly gates, and they're arguing all the way. Navy's the best, Army's the best, all the way up to St. Pete. And St. Pete says, "Will you get hotheads settled down? What's wrong with you?" "Well, maybe you can settle this for us, Pete. Which branch was the best branch?" St. Pete says, "That's above my pay grade. I don't know, but I'll be right back." He takes off. They're waiting at the gates. The gates are still closed. He finally comes back. He's got a 3x5 card. They said, "Well, what did he say?" Because I figured that he said, "Well, let me read this." It says, each of the services has their own valor and virtue. The Army pounds the ground and paves the way. The Marines are the tip of the spear. The Navy gets the Marines where they need to go and protects the seas. And the Air Force protects the skies. But the Navy is the best damn service there is. Signed, God, USN retired.
I've actually never heard that one. That's a good one.
You can change it up for Army if you want.
It pains me. I got the flag in the background, but like we said before we started, at least it's not an Air Force guy today, right? I mean, that's always where we draw the line here on Boards of Patriot. So we'll start off talking about growing up. You're a Youngstown kid.
I am a Youngstown fella. I'm the second son of a second son. My dad was a steel worker. He learned his trade as an electrician in the Navy. He joined the Navy after they bombed Pearl Harbor, and he went to Pearl Harbor. And the only thing he did while he was at Pearl Harbor until the end of the war was move bombs around. So he came home pretty buff. But he learned his trade there, and he got a job in the steel mill and was an electrician in the steel mill until he unfortunately got sick and died of leukemia.
So you talked about in the bio you sent me, you said your dad was in between work a lot. So you said growing up, everything seemed okay, but it really wasn't.
Well,
I want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we were probably just into the middle class, if you will. steel workers. There was a point in my career there where I made more money a month than my dad made in a whole year. I've been fortunate career-wise. And there's time differences too, but
There it goes. Yeah, there you go.
look at that, we're back. Yeah. Excuse our outage. My dad worked in the mill. I don't know how far back I have to go, but he was an electrician in the mill. And we did okay, but then there'd be a strike or there'd be a layoff. My dad was always able to get something. He'd land a job, fill-in job, either with Otis Elevator because he was an electrician, or with the gas company because his other brother worked at the gas company. So while things, we didn't have fancy cars or anything like that. My dad's first new car, I went with him to go get his new car, and I was the second kid, and I was probably second grade, third grade at the time, when he bought his first brand new car, 1957 Ford station wagon. But we had a good life. We didn't know, we didn't have, didn't feel like we were poor or anything. We lived in a nice neighborhood and a nice house. My mom was a nuclear family mom, a stay-at-home mom, and she ran the house, and Dad would come home. He'd work shifts when he was at the mill, and we had a good life all in all. I had a soapbox derby car for 2 different years, and so did my brother. Little things like that. We weren't playing with a hoop and a stick, but we also didn't have brand new baseball bats or $400 baseball bat like my granddaughter just got.
Don't even start with that. I can't be more thankful that my kids are done. The general sports seem like they just get more and more expensive. And
Yeah.
then you're like, you gotta, every year you replace them. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. But so, you talk about that. Your dad, was in between jobs a lot. Obviously, he was aware. Do you ever look back and see, why you didn't feel that stress? Was it something like, did your dad ever show it? Was he just, dealing with the stress a lot?
Sometimes my
In some
dad,
ways.
sometimes my dad showed it, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't. He didn't let it affect the family for the most part. So, and Mom kept everything going pretty good. So, good things have been. If he had never been on strike or on layoff, would life been much different? Probably not, because he, like I said, he filled in jobs. And we never knew we were poor. I don't think we were actually poor.
Yeah. So what were you like growing up? What was young John like?
I had an older brother who would torment me and then try to make me not the victim, but the perpetrator. And it worked a lot. I loved my brother. He passed a few years ago, but we had a good relationship. He was a tormentor, and I went along with it. It was all in good fun for the most part. We tied our sister to a chair once, our youngest sister, in the basement, tied her to a chair. Mom was not happy about that. I was not a great student in high school. I was not much better in college at first, and then when I recycled and went to school as a non-traditional student, a nutso, my brother would say. I was a much better student after the service.
So you playing sports right now?
I went to, my brother was old enough to play baseball, Little League, and he made the team. And he came home, was proud, and said, "Hey, I made the team." And I said, "I'd like to be on the team." And it was just 3 blocks down the street where the ball field was. And so I went with him the next day and went up to the coach and said, "I want to try out for the team." And he said, "What position do you want to play?" I was too young to play. And he was sort of entertaining me. He said, what position do you want to play? I said, "Batter." So I was too young to play.
He's like, this kid is not playing.
Yeah.
That's not a position I'm joking. That's
No. But, you know, I played sandlot football, sandlot baseball. My dad, we didn't have a baseball, so my dad made a baseball out of electrical tape and some other stuff for us once. But we had some baseball bats and gloves and things like that. So we played ball in the neighborhood. You know, someone would say, "Hey, come on over and play ball," or do this or that. And we do that. What was I like as a kid? We had a lot of freedom back then. In the 50s, we would my brother and I, we'd have to do our chores, and then we'd get out of there. We'd get on our bikes and ride down to the Mill Creek Park in Youngstown. Is the largest metropolitan park outside of Central Park in New York. And it goes through 2 or 3 cities. And it was only a mile away for us downhill to get there. And then we would ride all the way to the end of the park and back. And as long as we got home before those street lights came on, we were good. We would go and play in the caves that we found or the streams and try to find fish or whatever. We weren't fishing, we were just looking to do something. So we had kind of an idyllic life, I guess. Stereotypical. We enjoyed things like that. We had our disciplinary issues too. Like I said, every time we had a little sister. So there was my brother, 2 years later me, 2 years later my eldest younger sister, and then 10 years after me, 8 years after the first sister was our little sister. And truth be told, my sister Jana participated in tying Carolyn to the chair. So.
But you're coming out now and telling the truth. Like,
Yeah.
It wasn't. She was involved.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say about our childhood. It was good.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is like it's always an honor to have a Vietnam veteran on. So it's kind of alludes to, I guess, the next part of what we're getting into. You growing up, you know, you have a good childhood in the 50s. You know, as you start getting into your teens, the world, you know, there's a major problem going on for the U.S. The Vietnam War is kicking off. What is that like? You know, I try to, you know, we've had a couple of Vietnam veterans on, but what is it like growing up knowing like, hey, if I don't, you know, just your upbringing, you're talking about, you know, being a kid from Youngstown, blue collar kid. Most likely, what a lot of people don't realize is that odds are you're going to get drafted pretty quick. So what is it like, you know, growing up with that, you know, kind of like.
My brother graduated from high school, had to go to summer school to complete an English class because he didn't like the teacher, and the teacher ticked him off, and he did something, and the teacher failed him on procedure more than anything else, I think, not on performance. And so he had to go to summer school, and as soon as he got his diploma, he went and joined the Navy. But our dad had been in the Navy. He joined the Navy, and to get out of the house, not be a burden and whatever. He had no aspirations for college. I graduated probably about the middle of my class, and I got accepted to Kent State University School of Architecture, and I did 2 years in architecture school. And the lie that I tell is that I went to, my spring quarter, we were on quarters back then. My spring quarter, I took 17 hours and, no, 16 hours. And I had a 5-hour class that I shaped up. I looked at it and it said, this can shape up to be really tough. I better drop it and then catch that later when I have a lighter load. Well, or an easier load, I should say. And the lie that I tell is that my draft notice beat me back to my apartment. I was living off campus my second year. It didn't, but it showed up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, what should I do? And he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't want to go to Vietnam. I don't want to go to Canada. It's colder there than here. Nothing against Canada. But he said, well, see if you pass your physical. So I went up to Cleveland for my physical, and in a very wide hallway, probably as wide as the house is deep, right? I'm standing there. I've just had my physical. I know that I passed it. I'm with a bunch of other guys on one side. This is for qualification. On the other side, they're going. They're just getting their final physical, and they're getting on a bus to go to boot camp. Long line of fellas, and we're all standing there in our skivvies, and the DI says, count up by 4. So they 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down that going in line. And we're standing there watching this, and I'm not really sure why, other than maybe psychology. And then he yells, hey, Gunny, what number do you want? Should have been my first clue, but I was a kid. I didn't know what a gunny sergeant was. And you hear this booming voice, give me the praise. And the biggest, blackest Marine I've ever seen in my life. And he was a mountain of a man, steps out into the hallway. The threes had taken 2 steps forward. He said, ladies, and the 1 or 2 gentlemen that are in here, the president, your country, and I want to thank you for volunteering for the United States Marine Corps. I said, crap, I'm not doing that. So as soon as I could, I called my dad. I told him what happened. He said, join the Navy. So I did. I went in as an E3 because of my college.
Right.
The drill instructor at boot camp came up to me. He called 2 guys into his office at different times. I was one of them. I thought I was in trouble for something. He said, I know you're an E3. They don't. I suggest that they don't until you get out of here. And I thought that was probably pretty good advice, so I kept my mouth shut. While we were in boot camp, they pulled the numbers. Your dad will know about this, but they assigned numbers for the draft instead of just hodgepodge. Well, my number came in low, so it was a good thing I was there. And they let us all watch that. It was like a torture thing, probably for the guys that pulled 365, 350 or something. They were going, why am I here? So when we graduated, he shook everybody's hand, and when he shook my hand, my stripes were in his hand. He said, somebody's on at home, shook my hand. That was the first sign of grace that I ever saw from him. The only sign of grace, I guess. Well, other than telling me not to let anybody know. And I subbed him on at home and went off to Class A school for signalman in Newport, Rhode Island, and walked in as an E3. So I was able to test for E4 much sooner than anybody else.
Right.
Reported to the ship, reported to Alameda Naval Air Station. The ship came in, and I went up to the chief pretty early on, not immediately. And I said, Chief, I've been in grade now for whatever number of months, and I'd like to test for E4. He said, you just got here. I'll leave the expletives out. And about a week and a half later, he calls me up to the bridge and says, I really thought that you can go ahead and test. And I passed because I'd just gotten out of A school, so I was proficient. And I made E4 pretty quick. It was during our first tour that I got my stripes. We went over, the ship came back from Vietnam, we turned it around quickly, dirty, chipped some paint, painted over it, did some sequels and got back over there. But it was my first time. And first 5 times in the Philippines, I didn't even get off the ship except to take garbage out and throw it in the dumpster because everybody else who had been there before had somewhere to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And the people wanted somebody to stand their duty. So I took their money and stood their duty. And I made some good money.
Before we get, into Vietnam, can we digress a little bit, go back to what we were talking about? So, you like I said, I think you're the 4th Vietnam veteran we had. I think you're the second or third, maybe second, that new draft was coming, enlisted, was in the Army or the Navy in your case. Like, taking it back, like you said before, like, what was that like living, like, a young kid, like, I mean, you were, what, 19, 18 at the time? 18. You're knowing, like, hey, if I don't, how the world works is if I'm not in college, I'm most likely getting drafted. And if I'm physically able, I'm going to Vietnam. I'm going, I'm doing the service. Like, what is that like? Because I'm a global war on terrorism Navy. So it's different. Like, we had a choice. Like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like you kind of didn't really have a choice. What was that like? Having to decide, like, do I wait to get drafted or do I control my destiny? Like, what is that feeling like?
Going to college was purposeful. It wasn't to avoid anything. But I didn't want to go to the service. I thought I would get through college and that conflict over there would go away and life would be good. However, watching the news and, I don't remember his name, but, some of the newscasters that were over there near the front lines and reporting, you'd see that often, and you'd hear about the statistics of all the losses and everything, which was part of my issue. But you worried about it. But once I got into college, I thought, well, I'm okay for now. And maybe if I get through college and I have to go, I'll go as an officer. I wasn't in ROTC or anything like that. And I was at Kent State University just before that event on May 4th. In fact, it was my 21st birthday. I called home a couple days after the event, hadn't seen any news. And my mom told me about the folks that got shot in Kent. I knew a couple of them. And that war, conflict, police action, you could tell it wasn't, and I now know full well that it was not being fought to win. I think that's a problem with a number of, like World War I, World War II, they were fighting it to win. The powers that be, I'm not going to get into politics here, but they weren't fighting the war to win. And the soldiers and sailors and Marines and Coast Guard, we had Coast Guards with us. We knew that it wasn't being fought to win, and I think we knew watching TV that it wasn't being fought to win. And that's kind of tough to take, because that's something you want to sign up for when, you swear an oath to the country when you enlist or get drafted, and it's daunting. It was a shadow over everybody, and a lot of guys just accepted it, got out of high school and went into the service to get it over with and hope for the best. I didn't meet some of my uncles because they didn't come back from World War II, but all of my uncles, except for one, on both sides of my family, my mom's side has a couple of the splinter group because of her dad died and then she got remarried. Grandma got remarried. So I had a lot of uncles. and every one of them had served in World War II. And my brother, myself, and all of our cousins served in Vietnam, or during Vietnam, but mostly in Vietnam. It was a patriotic time. I think like some folks are patriotic now, but there were also, you see the protests and everything on TV, but in middle America, that was the goofy left coast or whatever. And it was daunting. It was a cloud over everybody's head.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't want to go to Vietnam, but I also didn't want to go to Canada.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like, I'm thank you for being so honest about that, because it's something I think a lot of, if you know that Vietnam veterans should talk about that, because I think it's a huge thing weighing over your head that a lot of people don't understand what that was like, especially when you start talking about, if you look at the history of it, if you were, a lower income kid, you were having, most of likely low number, and you were, going away. There's a lot of history that shows that, and unfortunately, what you said about not winning the war, I know, I grew up watching that and kind of like seeing that with Vietnam, because after the dust settled, you could kind of see what had happened. And I always thought to myself, like, there's no way we could possibly do that again. And I unfortunately feel the same way you feel about the war I fought in Afghanistan. I don't feel like we did that to one either. So it's like you said before, it's one of those things for us that the non-veterans need to understand is like all the loss, all the heartache, everything, the suffering, the joy, all that stuff is, can sometimes feel like it was for nothing, and it's really hard. I don't know if you learn that when you get older, because if, somebody told me that in, 2005 and 2006 that we weren't trying to win Afghanistan, I would have gone to go fuck themselves. But like now that I see it now, I'm like, wow, it's an unfortunate part of the whole thing, really.
Yeah, I really do believe that World War I and World War II
I do.
were fought to win. And I'm not sure about any other war that we've been involved in. The Revolutionary War, obviously, but you and I weren't around for that. Your dad went.
Maybe I'll follow up with
Sorry.
I like it. The first bomb my dad used to do that. But no, it's one of the things I think that brings all generations of veterans together, because and I don't have that as being a political thing we're talking about. It's just one of those things to think about as a veteran. I think a lot of us, the young guys that listen, if you tell them now, they'll probably tell you to go fuck yourself. But like as you grow older, you see what really happened and policies that were either put in place or not put in place. And it's sad because it ends up, fortunately, my generation didn't lose as many Americans as your conflict did, but it's still something that really stings for a lot of us, especially when you look at how the withdrawal in Vietnam, how it had the withdrawal of Afghanistan. It wasn't just the same, yeah. And I never thought I'd ever see that, but it's history does repeat itself. So
A very good friend of mine, been deployed 14 times to Afghanistan and Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 Purple Hearts, chest full of medals, Ranger, very good friend of mine. He and I had a rough time with the Afghanistan withdrawal, and I consoled him, might not be the right word, but I supported him through that. He's PTSD as well. I'm PTSD. I tell people that, I've got special options, or I don't know what it's called. I've got disabilities. But he struggled with that. I'm sure Tim does, but Tim's just too crusty to let it show. Tim's the director of Stockhands that I'm talking about. Well, we'll talk about Stockhands later. But it was a shame to see that again. I will tell you that I cried, because different tools, different populations, but same damn thing. It was tough to watch.
no, I agree. I think if you look back at, I saw obviously, from a different perspective, a young kid, like what happened with, Vietnam, you see the history and they got them, and you just saw, how that was affecting all these veterans. And like, that's the same thing I thought too. The first thing I thought would happen was like, holy shit, we're just creating the same type of, situation, a much longer war in two different places, you know what I mean? And you saw how some of those people came back and did really just to it. And it's hard. I think that's, a big thing to see. And the way you put it, I really didn't kind of see it that same way as you did, and probably my dad sees it. I didn't realize how quick and how bonded we were by, how your conflict ended and how our conflict ended, and how a lot of us feel that, what was, 'cause my question is, what's the point? Like,
Yeah.
What's the point
If you're going to put us in,
Yeah, exactly.
honor us,
Yeah.
and mission us, and let us do it.
Yeah.
Or don't put us in.
Yeah,
Just stay out of it. Did we really need to help this Sioux tribe fight that Sioux tribe? I don't know. And, somebody will make the argument, Vietnam falls and then, the whole world is going to go communist. And it's not an optimum the structure, in my opinion, because it's not very humane. And I'm bordering on politics when I don't really need to.
Yeah, but no, I get where you're coming from. I mean, it's a topic of. No, I agree. I mean, it's really kind of, because if you don't, I mean, there's a lot of us like I said, a lot of us like, what was it worth?
Yeah.
What was it worth to give up everything and to see your friends again come home and the the pain and all this kind of stuff, and because honestly, it feels like a fucking failure. Like I used to make a joke about my dad and some stuff like that about losing Vietnam, and we make a joke about it, but like that's how it feels. It feels like you lost, and it feels like it doesn't feel good. And I mean, it's something to be addressed, and I think it's hard for people to understand. Because they didn't have, a lot of people didn't have skin in the game, and they don't really understand what that meant. Give up everything for.
If they weren't in the desert, or in the jungle, or in the conflict, I never made it to the jungle, technically. My DD 214 says 2.5 years overseas duty. That's it. Yours probably reads like a book, right? This, that,
the other.
Yeah. Back then it was like, okay, you're out. But we shouldn't get involved unless we intend to win. It's like, we shouldn't, if you're going to gamble, you better be prepared to win or lose, but your intent ought to be to win. And that's what a war is. It's a gamble, and it's a game. It's a terrible game, but it's a game. And I just think that they need to support us, sending us in, and just as much, they need to support us, bring us back.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that too.
Yeah, I never thought like it's I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but that's I really just in the past few years is when I really felt that, and we might be talking about the same person, but it was when it was on the podcast, it was like it's a very painful thing that like a lot of people don't really like. I don't address and talk about a lot of people because they're not going to understand it. But yeah, there's a part of it just is like you kind of feel used a little bit too.
A lot.
That's the right word. But
That's absolutely the right word.
it's okay. I mean, I don't fault the system. It's how it works, and it's okay. But it's just those feelings are hard. I've come to grips with them, but it still does make you. It kind of puts things in perspective how you look at it. You know what I mean? It just hurts. Yeah, I guess the way to put it for me.
It hurts for me too, but I'm in a much better place finally at my point in life.
So we'll talk about you head over to the ship. What kind of ship are you on?
I was on USS Ranger, CBA 61. When they build a ship, it's called laying the keel, and everybody that is on the first complement of the ship is a keel plank owner, and the fellow that owned the pizza shop that I worked my way through college at I started out as a delivery boy, hustling in this little Fiat, running all over town, delivering pizzas before GPS. And by the time I left college 2 years later, didn't graduate, I left to go to service. I was the manager of the pizza shop because of Vietnam. Everybody that wasn't working, wasn't going to school, was going to Vietnam. And I ended up managing the place for the owner. He was a plank holder of the ship that I later ended up being on. Just a side note, I think it's a cool thing. That it's like the Cosmos Alliance sometimes. But it's an aircraft carrier. It's 80,000 tons, roughly 5,000 people, windy air wings on. When they tell you how many airplanes an aircraft carrier handles, they talk about fixed wing and rotary. The fixed wing is an airplane with wings and helicopters. Now we've got Ospreys that have wings and props, but at any rate, we had about 102 jet aircraft of various, mostly jet aircraft, and then 10 or 12 helicopters. And I rode in the helicopters a few times. And got to cross-deck train on, cross-deck training is you go and do your job on a different ship. And they got to go on the great big aircraft carrier, and I got to go on Richard B. Anderson, a Fram 1 destroyer that's about, it looks like a toy next to an aircraft carrier. And we were running from the Typhoon when I was on board the Richard B. Anderson, and the green water was going over the bow of the Ranger, and the Richard B. Anderson was going through the waves. And I was on the very top of the ship signal, and I ended up on the chains. I had welts on the abdomen that was not covered with lard, and welts across my chest and my abdomen. The wave had me out like this, and the captain got on the communication and said, "What happened up there?" Because he could tell, because we were just above the navigation bridge, and he said, "Get that sail below decks." On an aircraft carrier, 160 feet above the water when you're at the top of the ship, 80 feet to the flight deck, and then another 60 to 80 feet above that. Also was on the HMAS Perth for 5 days, and an Aussie came over and was on our ship, and I was on their ship, and they would drink beer every afternoon at 2 o'clock. Sorry, mate, you can't have one. But I could, my only satisfaction was knowing that there was a guy over on our ship that wasn't having his beer. And then I was on a DDG, I forget the name of it right now, but a missile launcher.
So the aircraft carrier, obviously, those planes were loud, but also flying sorties over Vietnam. So, I'm sure you experienced, certain number of aircraft leaving and then, that same number not coming back. You have this team now, like, what's that like? You're not flying them, but you still have to see the, guys that, pilots and navigators that, and physical ships that aren't coming back, or aircraft aren't coming back to the ship. Like, what's
My job was up on deck, not on the flight deck, up on above, and I watched their flight ops all the time. My very first experience, we were bringing on the air wing. We had done our sequels, passed them. We were bringing on the air wing, and the very first plane to land was a Vigilante, which is a reconnaissance plane, really big jet. And it had to have been the pilot's first landing. On an aircraft carrier, you're supposed to go full throttle. Your hook catches. Once you realize that you're on the hook, you let off the throttle. And the reason for that is because you can take off if you miss the cable. There's 4 cables across. And the aim is to catch number 3, which is the second one. 4, 3, 2, 1. If you miss one, you gotta be able to take off. If your hook bounces, you gotta be able to take off. Well, he hit the deck and shut down the throttle. They rolled off the end of the angle deck, and then they ejected into the angle deck, broke both their necks. The plane ended up on the bottom of the ocean, and we got those two guys out of the ocean. So we had a fatality real early. We were just off the coast of San Diego. And finished taking on the air wing. I'm sure somebody had a lot of paperwork to do. And then we were off into Hawaii, went to the Philippines, got refueled and all that stuff, stopped. But we were in Hawaii for less than 24 hours and PI for probably 30 hours to bring in supplies and whatever. And then we were off the coast of Vietnam. We had incidents where they crashed on ship. We had incidents where they didn't come back, had to go get them. And I was never involved in a recovery. It was always I'm never involved in a rescue. It was, for me, 100% recoveries. So that was tough. And then because I knew the corpsman, and I was very good friends with the corpsman and the officer, the doctor, and I didn't help physically with embalming or anything. I don't think they did that, but getting them ready to send them home. That's the source of my PTSD. But
Thank you for sharing that.
I did it. Respect. And because I knew we were involved in it and they involved me in it. So it was, we had an airplane fly into the net once. Probably, Army, you probably don't have a clue what that is, but if an airplane takes off and for whatever reason there's something wrong, in this case, it was an F4 Phantom, and its right landing gear fell out of the airplane as they took off. Somebody noticed it, said, "Hey, Squeaky Joe," whatever his call sign, "you've got a problem, do a flyby." He flew by its stall, and they verified that he didn't have his right wheel. So they had him deplete his fuel, and then we put up a net, because we were too far away from, he couldn't go to Vietnam. So he bled out his fuel, and he flew into the net, which I understand is much more traumatic than catching the hook, because the cable runs out when the hook catches it. When you go fly into the net, it's like hitting a brick wall. I knew that lieutenant. That was one of the lieutenants that was in that plane, and he said it was quite a ride. But they flew again. They fixed this plane up and made sure all the wheels stayed.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking to mechanics like, hey guys, let's
What the hell?
look at those wheels, make sure they're tightened back on after that.
I have a funny story, if I may. I think it's funny. So that same lieutenant, we went over to Guam early, and we were there long enough to get a ribbon. Then we did our tour continuously, got a star, and then we were headed back to go home, and we were going to go around the world to get there. To Talamita, we were going to go to Australia, around South Africa, the Atlantic, Cape of Good Hope, I think it is, and then up to, well, we were 1 hour from the equator. In the Navy, it's a big deal to cross the equator. And the captain called general quarters. We're 1 hour away from the equator. I jumped out of the signal shack, put my hands on the rails and slid down to the navigation bridge. Stepped into the bridge. I said, "Captain Joe, what are you doing?" He says, "We're going to go back." So I said, "Sir, touch the equator, touch the blanking equator. I'm a polyglot. He said, we'll get it. We'll go, when we go home, we'll go. You sure? Well, we went back for another tour. We were there for almost another whole tour and they're in the star. We're there for more than a half campaign in the ribbon. So I don't really have 3 full tours.
Right, yeah.
But we never did cross the equator. My brother did 4 times.
So explain that, because that's a big deal. It's a tradition, like a lot of shenanigans go on, right?
Yeah. So supposedly you're going to get keel hauled. That's where they tie ropes to your wrists and your ankles, throw you over in front of the ship, and then pull you back out after. They don't do that, but they make you crawl through garbage, tubes of garbage. They make you do some terrible things, including kissing the belly of the fattest chief on board. I don't know what all happens with that because I didn't get to do it, but I knew I wanted to be a shellback. There's polywogs that cross the equator, and shellbacks do cross the equator, and you get this beautiful plaque, almost as big as a stable. That's not wood; it's a paper document, but it's really kind of cool.
And I think back in World War II, that's when they were able to get like chest tattoos, and there's like a whole bunch of like after you went through it, there's a lot of traditions that and it's just funny that you're upset by it. You get hazed, basically you get hazed for but it's an important thing for a sailor. I've always heard even today I think there's still forms of it probably that are going on.
Oh yeah, I am dead certain that when you cross the equator, you get all the hazing. And they, it's not real physical abuse, but it's probably borders on that.
It's about hazing. I mean, it's okay. I mean, everyone's it's a different time, but I hope they still can carry on the tradition that's been going on for many years. And sorry you didn't get that.
Thanks.
That's all right.
Yeah, I have my brother's plaque, so certificate.
So you never fell off the earth though, because it's flat, right? I mean,
Well, we got to the end. We did get to the end until we looked over it. Luckily, the engines were in good shape when we were able to back up.
That's the one at work we have a conversation where it's talking about like, do you believe in Bigfoot? Do you believe in aliens? Like these.
Moon landing.
Yeah, but that's one. And then the latest one we did add is, do you believe the Earth is flat? We've not found one yet. We hope so, but it's like that's a joke that we're always like, oh my gosh. So like some of the guys will pull out a video and be like, you got to watch this guy trying to explain how the world's flat, and you're like, it's just it's one of the greatest things. I just want to meet one. If you're out there, just hit me up at the end. We can talk a little bit. I just want to meet you for a cup of coffee. But
So back to the airplanes, we lost probably under 20 out of all 3 campaigns, but that's a lot.
yeah,
And that's 20 families that had high hopes of their son, husband, whoever would come back and become a pilot for American Airlines or something, right? So I know a couple of pilots, let's say they were lucky enough to have as many landings as they did takeoffs. I know currently 2 aircraft carrier pilots, friends. I'm a blue and gold officer for the Naval Academy, and the guy that recruited me in was a pilot. I didn't know him then.
So if you look back on that, I mean, I'm sure you will talk more about it. What was the most difficult part about being on that ship and being, part of that conflict and what you're bringing to it?
So, well, the living arrangements are different. It's not like a barracks. The racks are 3 high. I had a top rack, but I ended up being, again, through attrition, I ended up being the lead petty officer for my division because the chief went home or I think he went home, he retired. And then the first class went, and then the second class, there were 2 of us, and he got reassigned. He'd been overseas a lot, and he got on land assignment. So I ended up being the LPO, lead petty officer. So I could sort of say I don't want to be on the bottom. And, yeah, I just didn't have people's dirty feet stepping on my back.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, the Navy and being on ships all the time, I see them, especially like you go see like old ones like World War II, and I'm like, no way. I mean, it just doesn't. Even now they show somebody doing a TikTok showing you what's going on. I'm like, that does not look. I'll take my cot with the one side you can ever get that's a big joke. Army, if you ever said military cot, you get that special cot where you can get both ends, otherwise one of them's all sitting on the ground and have to. Some of those conditions.
So you're on a ship back then with 5,000 guys. You stand in line to get a haircut, you stand in line to eat, you stand in line to get paid. You stand in line to get on the ship, you stand in line to get off the ship. Well, that only borders on demoralizing because it really isn't, but it sort of is. You just feel like cats sometimes. And then you gotta do your job, and when you're out at sea, you do your job or you sleep. And there's like, you're not sitting around playing cards much or whatever, but it's something you get through. I'm sure I would not have been too happy being in the Army. You're not contained on a ship, but you're still contained on a base.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's similar.
I thought my dad was partying when they weren't doing something. He always talked about Vietnam when they were partying all the time. So I got pictures of my dad was drinking beer. He was like, it must have been the Brits. So the Army had it pretty good over
there. He's being real quiet over there.
Yeah, he always takes some shots, man. But I'm joking, guys, but I'm not. So, I mean, anything else you want to talk about Vietnam? There, I mean, because I want to talk about it obviously when you come back, but.
No, I enjoyed my liberty when we got it. Again, I didn't go into the Philippines 5 times because I was making money. I did go into the Philippines once or twice, but I saved a lot of money and I made money, and I was able to buy a Nikon FTN camera when I got to Japan. I think I bought it in Hong Kong. Yeah. So I enjoyed Hong Kong. I had a friend who was an architecture student as well at the University of Hawaii. And we found out he ended up being on the Hancock and I was on the Ranger. But we found out we were architecture students. And he had a friend in San Francisco, a female, Gabby Fung, who went to school with him. I don't think she was an architecture student, but she had relatives in Hong Kong. So I always try to see an anchor detail, because if you have sea and anchor detail, you're the last one to get off the ship, but you have to work through the entire division before they get back to you for duty. And sometimes you're not in port long enough to get back to you. So it was a trick that I played where if I was going to go on land, I would take sea and anchor detail because everybody else would get off the ship. And I just thought different than most of these horn dogs.
Yes, we know they're in the Philippines, it's okay.
And so in Hong Kong, I had sea and anchor detail. Russ Brooks, God bless you if you're out there. He lives in New England somewhere, I forget where. I took the ferry in because Ranger couldn't pier up. It had to be anchored out. So you take the ferry in, and I get off the ferry, and Russ Brooks comes up and running up to me. He says, "Hey, Benny, there's this girl here looking for you." I said, "Russ, get the hell out of here. I don't need that." "No, there's a girl, honest to God, she's looking for you." I said, "I'm not buying it," because he was one of the, I got a girlfriend with PI. But turns out it was Gabby's cousin. and she took me and showed me around, and then I went to dinner at her, Gabby's uncle's house, who was a big deal trade, export guy. They lived up fairly nice place for Hong Kong, up the side of Mount Victoria, which is the big mountain in Hong Kong. So I sort of had a inside look at Hong Kong with a pretty good safety net. She knew that when the Hancock was coming in, so she could meet Jeff, and she knew when the Ranger was coming in, because Gabby had told her to look for this patch and what our ratings were and whatnot. So she did a good job of getting her cousin to find us and show us around Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's not like today where you can just go on cell phone or, it takes a lot more work and planning out and luck, probably a lot of luck too. So you eventually get out of the Navy, right? You head back home.
So we came back to the States, went through Ship's Force Overhaul Management, where we really fixed up the ship. We went into dry dock. Had one too many waters.
Yeah.
We went into dry dock. I never went underneath the ship. I wish I had. And this was really lucky for me, and why I am fond of some of my a lot of my Navy time. I had architecture as some background, and they advertised that they needed a drafts person for the Ship's Force Overhaul Management System. So I said, I went to architecture school, and well, why don't you go and carry your hat in me? So I did, and I got assigned to be the draftsman for the commander who's in charge of the overhaul. And they brought these double wide trailers and hooked them together. So it was a pretty big complex in the hangar net, a command center, if you will, for the overhaul. And when I reported aboard, a lieutenant who I came to like quite a bit, but I was enlisted, by the way, E5. So I reported to the trailer, and this lieutenant said, oh boy, is the commander going to be happy to see you? And the commander overheard him. He comes out, he says, Lieutenant, get this man a cup of coffee. I said, sir? And he worked me like a rented mule till Wednesday morning. He needed all his presentation materials ready by Wednesday morning. I fell asleep at one point, but I stayed at my drafting table until Wednesday morning. That was Sunday night that I reported aboard, and worked straight through. And he came in Wednesday morning, woke me up. Are you done? Yes, sir. Show me what you got. Okay, fine. That looks great. And he says, I'll see you in a week and a half. Sure. I said, you're on liberty. Do what you want. My brother was living in LA, near LA. So I could fly to LA for $12 if I was in a uniform. So I flew to LA every other week for a week and a half, go back, and Sunday night, commander would give me my mission, I'd execute it, and I'd sleep at my drafting board sometimes, and I never missed a deadline, and he just kept turning that wheel for me, so I got a Harley Davidson when I was down there, and my brother and I both bought Harleys, and full basket case, and had a good time during that. So the ship got all done up, went through sequels again. We took on an air wing again, and we were tied up at the pier, and we were about 2-3 hours away from casting off. And the captain himself comes on 1MC and says, Petty Officer Bennehoof, report to the captain on the bridge immediately. I said, I didn't do anything wrong. What did one of my guys do? The captain himself was calling me to the bridge. I ran to the bridge, reported to him. He said, Bennehoof, get off the ship. I said, sir, get off the ship. Sir, I don't have orders. And he said, God damn it, you got orders from me. I said, sir, I don't have papers because, change duty stations without papers. And he said, report to the captain, the commander of the base. They'll be on the pier waiting for you when you go. Okay. He said, you got about 45 minutes to get out of here. I'm sorry. And is this okay?
Yeah.
So I went and gathered as much of my stuff as I could, threw it in my seat bag. I didn't get everything. I get off the ship and there's a captain and a Red Cross person. And they informed me that my dad was, the captain didn't want to tell me that my dad had leukemia and he was going to die in maybe 2 months. And he lasted for 18 months. They reassigned me as soon as they got papers caught up to me. I went to the Reserve Center in Youngstown, Ohio, and was able to help out around the house. And while I was at the Reserve Center, my primary duty seemed to be to go and render honors, what felt like an average of at least once a week, sometimes 4 in a week, and sometimes none, but it was probably about once a week. We covered all of Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. So it was extending my dance with loss of comrades. So, and then the commander's job was to find me a job. So he kept sending me on, helping me get interviews. And I went and interviewed at IBM, and I guess they liked me. They had me go and take a test for aptitude, and then I went back for a final interview, and I came back from the interview. He said, how'd you do? I said, I think I did pretty well, sir. And he opens his drawer, pulls out a paper and slides and then dates it and slides it across the desk. It was my separation. I said, sir, he said, you got the job, if you want. And he'd already separated.
You have a choice.
So I took the job, and it was to go to New York and make HPCL wafers, chips for computers. I won't get into all that technical stuff, but so we made chips. I'll just leave it at that.
And Fishkill.
In Fishkill,
So that could have been Newburgh.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I lived in Wappingers Falls,
Oh, yeah, all right.
306 Papula.
What year was that?
1973.
I wasn't there yet.
You
I was
were
one.
any?
I was one. I was
Oh,
around.
you were, okay.
I was one. Big one at the time. But yeah, let's before we get to the IBM career, you hit on a couple times. So you go from being on a ship and seeing loss, obviously from the things that happen on aircraft carrier, things happen in the Navy during war. Then you're also rendering honors, which is going to funerals. I'm assuming what you named intro. So and then to lose your dad, like you see all this loss. What's going on like internally for you at the time? Or are you still pushing it aside at that point, or are you feeling something's off, or what's going on with you?
So, to a certain extent, I probably not as much, but yeah, I pushed it off. I have what I call a dark decade. I got out in '73, and in '80 moved to Vermont, and I was diagnosed with PTSD. If anybody told me, I didn't register, or they didn't tell me to go and apply for benefits. They gave me counseling, which I thought was my benefit. And I did okay. I learned to meditate and try to let things go, but never really got rid of all of that. And push the loss aside. You know, I didn't have any immediate comrades that I lost, but you lose people and you're that intimate with the process, it gets to you. And then exacerbating it by rendering orders so often, and that seemed like the only thing you did was, oh, you gotta go home and change into your dress blues at 2 o'clock, you gotta be at, the field, whatever. So, pushed a lot and suppressed a lot of that lost stuff and guilt, for no good reason, guilt, right? I think you probably understand the good reason guilt. And my girlfriend, now wife, said to me, if you don't get your act together, not exactly what she said, I'm gonna pack up and go home. We're living in Vermont at the time. And that's how I ended up in therapy. And, Lawrence Fish, I can't remember for sure right now, but it had something Fish something. Good guy, and he helped me through a lot. Didn't dispose of it. I don't know that anybody does. I don't think you just say, okay, I'm done, and you flush the toilet and it's gone. I don't know that ever happens. And I didn't. I wasn't engaged in actual combating. I, like Tim and you and your dad, I didn't carry arms most of the time, and I wasn't engaged in the suck, as they say.
I'm gonna end up being here tonight because I think that we've heard this before. I think that's, I don't think you should, it doesn't matter, right? Because I think we talked about this before. Whatever you're like, you don't have to be in all these awful things. Your worst day is your worst day. That's how I have it. So you can see your worst things that just sometimes it's just a person can't take it anymore. So yeah, you don't have to be, a Marine grunt in Vietnam, or to have the same. I don't have to have the same problems that someone who's on a ship like you were doing. Seeing it's just you saw stuff that you just couldn't deal with, and that's okay. So I think that that's you hear that a lot with. I've heard that in my community too. Someone says how they want a military base and they didn't do anything, but it's you still see stuff, right? You still suffer loss. You see what's going on. And then some people deal with it differently. And that's okay. So
A mini shout out. Civil Warrior was good for you.
it saved my life. The arts thrown out there. Yeah, no, it definitely did. It's a huge turn on my outlook on life and how I look at things, and it saved a lot of people. And I'm trying to get you to go now. We need to get you down there. Maybe I can help you.
Adam wants me to go, so Adam.
I know who he is. I haven't met him, but yeah, I definitely. If he wants you to go, you definitely need to go.
Special operator, GWAT, communications guy.
Mm-hmm. He's a good guy. One of the founders of Saw. So
yeah.
But I think that's an important thing to when everybody's listening. That's one thing that a lot of people. I think the people that don't, that suffer, like, why should I be upset by this because I didn't see X, Y, or Z? And I can't lie for a long time. I felt that way too about when people would say stuff and you're like, what are you talking about? You didn't do this, you didn't do that, and you can't really. It's not fair to grade people's trauma, I think, or how they have what's affected them. So I just wanted to.
I have a glass just like this, and my wife probably thinks right now he's really knocking back the bourbon, so I need a whole.
Are you ready for some bourbon? Are we ready for bourbon break?
Not yet.
Is you sure?
Yeah. No, I'm drinking for two. I have to pace myself.
He's got his emotional support animal, he calls him. So the dark years. You said the dark decade.
Yeah, I was angry. I was reactive.
Me too.
And I have been again. I had a really good career, and I have a great family. I love my family. I've got 3 beautiful granddaughters that live a half mile away from me. Reagan, Addison, and Charlotte. And my youngest daughter is over in Worthington, so she's not that far away from us either. So she's not a mile away or half a mile away, but she's close. And she's married to a guy, and they're both married. One got married a little earlier than, well, she's older, so. The dark decade was a lot of anger and a lot of remorse and a lot of guilt and self-deprecation, feeling that, you know, this isn't happening for me because X, Y, or Z. I'm only here, well, for example, they took my job and split it in between two people and promoted to the one I was at when I left Fishkill, Burlington, Vermont. That angered the daylights out of me that they took my, maybe it should have complimented me in some way, but I didn't get a promotion moving on. At any rate, but I still had a good career. And I've had dark days. I used to, Tim and I have both done something haven't spoken to you about it yet, but Joe does TMS, or did.
I've done TMS as well too.
Okay, yeah, great. Very thankful that program exists, because my prostate cancer, my wife's cancer, my wife getting new parts, hips, knees, my mother-in-law breaking both hips, getting a new knee, blah, 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 blah. Things started to compress back on me, and my daughters, so I ended up back at the vet center on Bethel Road. I cannot speak highly enough about them. They have great counseling services, 2 good doctors for figuring you out, helping you figure yourself out, and then counselors to help the process continue. And they have, if you're in the program getting psychoed, they help you.
Never heard of that called earlier, but it's like
They help you with your benefits applications, and they've been very helpful that way. So when PTSD came back, I was casing the house, checking the doors, checking the windows in the middle of the night. You know, if I woke up, I wouldn't check stuff. And my wife wishes that I was still doing that, because I've occasionally left the door unlocked and I catch hell for it. But I don't, when I don't wake up as much because of TMS. We have 2 adopted dogs, so I do wake up because of them, but I'm not waking up. I have had a couple of dreams, and one was a stressful dream where but it wasn't a war dream. It was, I was chasing there was an active shooter, and I was like in this space where it was huge, and I had a high position and I could see where he was, and I went down there and I got hold of the arm that he used for the firearm, and I was holding him and restraining him and holding the piece out of harm's way. He still had hold of it, and I was yelling, somebody grab his other arm or something, I don't know. And then I was punching the pillow, and my wife, it was not good. That was recently, but it wasn't associated with any other kind of night terrors that I had in the past. So
let's go back to your wife, your Burlington, your wife saying that to you. I mean, because my a lot of people, I know the only time I'm bringing this is because if you're listening or you're feeling this way, I have it totally different now than I had before, but so many people told me something was wrong, right? Something was off. I wasn't who something was wrong, and I normally get angry and tell them what they're talking about, and then just kind of repeat that behavior. So when your wife told you, I'm super glad that you listened to her and got help. I wish I had listened to,
the problem is, I don't think some people don't tell you.
Yeah.
they're afraid to tell you, or maybe they don't recognize it. They know something's wrong, but they don't know what's wrong. And, a lot of people don't tell you.
No, I agree. For me though, it was like I had people tell me, and my part is that I didn't want to admit that I was broken, right? That I just wasn't coping with things. I felt a lot of shame and not being able to handle this, because again, at the time when that was happening to me, it wasn't like now where people were talking about having struggles. I'd see friends that it didn't seem to bother them. So I'm weak or something else by having that, and they're not having problems. Little do we know that they're suffering from the same thing you are. So the only reason I bring that up is I'm thankfully listened to your wife, right? And you got the help when you got it. And if anybody does, if anyone's listening out there, if someone is telling you like, it's not a bad thing. Kind of listen to it, evaluate it, and listen to people, because I had a lot of people in my life that were pushing me a certain way, and I have it too. That I know that I would have. I don't want to say broke, but I bended when I was done suffering. So that's a big thing. So I know that was going to happen. But if I had to go back, that's the one thing. A lot of people saw it, because I was denying it that this was happening. So I applaud you for having the courage to listen to your wife and get help.
And if you're out there and nobody's telling you, but you feel it,
Yeah, exactly.
do it.
Yeah,
Do something about it.
Yeah.
Because you owe it to yourself.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. Yeah, because a lot of it I thought I could beat it myself, and it wasn't that problem. I started doing stuff that I thought was helping, and it wasn't helping. And
I have the Boreal brothers. One came back and has fostered or adopted or whatever, something like 100 and some kids. The other one, Vietnam killed him after 10 years of being home because he lost both his legs. Went to Ray's house one day for a Christmas thing or whatever, and found him down the hallway, stabbing his wooden leg. He called him his wooden legs, they weren't wood. But he had a knife and he was stabbing his legs, his prosthetics. And a year or two later, he just decided to quit practicing on the prosthetics. So if you think you're okay or you're broken, but you can handle it, you don't need to carry it. You don't. It's so easy to. There's bad help out there. There really is. But there's a lot of good help. And if you go somewhere and you're not comfortable, you're not happy with the help that you are seeking is what you need, then change, go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And if you are listening, obviously I always tell people, reach out. The number one place to reach out to is if you or you know someone that is considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255 or chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. But like I said, if that doesn't work out for you, call a friend. People care. That's one thing I learned about. There are a lot of people that care about me that I didn't think cared about me. But I couldn't care about myself, which is deeply powerful. So.
Tim and I spend, Tim more so than I, but I spend a few hours a week talking to different folks that are struggling and just try to support them or get them resources they need or point them in a direction. Here's this Congress. You call your congressman, call your senator and say, I need some help with this or whatever. Go to the vet center, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that you're on the edge when you're about to jump. It can be, I'm not me. I'm not 100% me. I need to claw some of me back.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit the nail. No, you hit the nail. That it's important, I think, to
there's so much help out there nowadays. I'm so thankful for that. There's so many different organizations. There's an organization that you spoke of, Saber Warrior. There's the Stockhands that you're a part of, other organizations. There's plenty of people out there, like I said, that care. The only thing you got to do is have the courage to actually reach out and ask for help, and it's there for you. So, it's out there. If it's not, go into the middle of nowhere in Hillsborough, Ohio for 72 hours. Maybe it's going to the veterans rides you guys have, or events you have on Fridays, I think it is, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, just keep getting out there and finding if there's something that can help you. That's how I have that. And I'm thankful that I found what I found when I found it, and had a lot of whales that were pushing me that way, and I'm really thankful for that. So
I'm glad you went. I'm glad you saw it.
me too. So I mean, you had a long career in IBM. What's IBM stand for? I'm kidding.
International Business Machines. They started out a long time, 125 years ago, maybe more, as a timekeeping clock thing, and it evolved into computers, and now I think they've sold off. I think Kyndryl is the hardware side of things now. I've been gone for a while.
Yeah.
I was able to retire from IBM and took a job at Cardinal Health, senior director there for a couple of years, and then went and did consulting and consulted the state of Ohio. Then I went up to Michigan and was consulting there for 5 years. I think it was only 5, seemed like more. I would leave on Sunday afternoon and come back Friday night, and somehow managed to be a city council person during part of that period, vice mayor and mayor. Actually, I was mayor once I was back home. I retired from there finally, and the owner, who's also named John, said, "You don't want it. You do a good job. Why do you want?" Because I don't get to sleep with my wife. I don't get to play with my grandkids. I get a few hours on the weekends. I have done enough. I have enough. I want to be with my grandkids. And he begrudgingly accepted it, and not begrudgingly, but he really wanted me to stay. Well, I think it was 18 days later, my phone rings. I'm sitting in the family room, plumping on my laptop doing something. And I pick it up. "Hey, John, how you doing?" I said, he says, "Is everything okay, John?" He said, "Yeah, I want you to come back to work." I said, "John, I'm not going to do that." And he said, No, you can sleep with your wife. You can play with your grandkids. I want you to run the Ohio business for us. Who I have there isn't working out. So I went and did that for a couple of years. Consulting the state of Ohio. And in October, I told him I would do it on a yearly basis. We'll have a contract. You can fire me at any time. At the end of the contract, I'll quit or I'll stay on. So I stayed on one time. So I'm in my second year, and it's October. And he says, "I want you to take this project on." I said, "John, you're going to get the deal. I guarantee you've got the business." I knew the customer was my former boss at the state of Ohio, and I knew that we were going to end up with the business. And you don't need me to run this project. I know, but the customer's going to want you. And I said, "You don't know that." And he said, "Well, I don't want you." I said, by the way, I've been retired for 5 years, I think. That project is still ongoing. It's not that it's a failed project, it's just it's renewed and continued. And I didn't want to work when I was 70. So I said, "How'd it go?" I said, "You can fire me." "And what am I going to do with it?" I said, "Fire me. Let me go. Send me home. Ask me to sign a letter of resignation, whatever." They treated me nice. They, sent me off well. But then he knew I had to.
Sounds pretty thin. So, I got a question, you obviously from, if you read your resume, we don't need to go through every job you've had, but very successful in civilian career, transition out of the Navy. What aspects of like your military experience do you think helped you be successful, be resilient, and corporate America for all those years?
Resiliency from being on a ship, just being on a ship probably built resiliency, and then having grown into the leadership role, only because of that attrition, but I ended up needing to be a leader. And so I realized that there are different types of leadership. There's guys that you need to put a belt buckle around their neck, and other guys you can say, hey, let's get this done. Leadership is situational. I'm also the executive chair of the Patriot J.T. Berry Leadership Institute. We're in our 5th year, and we bring in lots of leaders from public sector, private sector, public service sectors, people that have stories. Karl Rove has spoken, like Pompeo, now Senator Houston, the governor, the township trustee, the city manager, all kinds of different people we have them come in, tell a story about how they got where they are, what they do where they are, and then their personal perspectives on leadership. And I think I didn't know a thing about leadership until I had to be one. When I was the manager at the pizza shop, it was like just a bunch of kids making pizzas and getting them delivered and eating pizza for every meal. But in the Navy, I learned leadership and different aspects of it by watching, by being subjected to, et cetera. And I think I told you enough stories about the chief, the commander, the lieutenant, a lot of different opportunities to soak up leadership.
Right.
And I applied my resiliency, my leadership, my organizational skills, because a big part of the majority of what I would say I did throughout almost all of my career was organizational. So how do you manage this to a successful end? And I don't think I learned everything I needed to about leadership and or organization or project management or any of that in the Navy, but I think it set me up for when I went to school at night, when I got out of the Navy and got back to Youngstown from Wappingers Falls, East Fishkill, New York. I went to school at night because I was working and I wasn't going to go back to architecture because that would be, I had to quit what I'm doing and I won't be making money, blah, blah, blah. So I went to school for business and got a bachelor's in management and economics. And that really didn't propel my career, so then I started job shopping and finding different things that I could apply myself to and was good at and was able to rise up.
Yeah. I will tell you, the military will teach you about leadership, good and bad.
Yes.
Especially you're going beyond the age, you're exposed to a lot of stuff and a lot of responsibility really quick, right? I mean, like when you were 5, how old were you?
23.
Yeah. When I was 22 and I was a second lieutenant, so it's always you learn really, you get thrust into leadership pretty quick at a young age. And I have the same thing as you, like I think, the military didn't prepare for everything, but it, does, the ability to move around the job, move around for jobs is important. I think, being able to, organizational self, being able to, think under stress, there's all kinds of good benefits of it.
And those are all things that are encapsulated in a military career being 3 years or 20 years.
320, 25, whatever the time on that is up there. The thing there. So, we'll, I'm gonna get into more of what you're doing now, but a couple more questions before I do that. So, what do you think is your biggest accomplishment in the Navy?
Making E5 as quickly as I did. And then I think I helped a couple of people grow in the Navy. I failed miserably with one guy. I ended up I took him to the forward sponson and put my belt around I closed down the hatch and put my belt around it. Said, "You're not leaving here until you prove to me that you're willing to do what you're told." He was an E2, I was an E5, and he was just a constant problem and disrespectful and whatnot. And remember that the navigation bridge is just one level down, and that was my worst example of leadership because he fell down the ladder, sir.
Oh. Yeah, I once tied my driver to Long B, but 550 cord and enough that he could go to the bathroom and get stuff because he kept disappearing from the vehicle. And I got rid of the ride out pretty quick by my tombstone at the time, so he's not able to do that. And we agreed to disagree, but that time was on the LP, that little metal hook in the back, tied in there, was perfect. But yeah, but I think everybody does things as a leader that they're not happy about. I think you can do that, but
I think I also learned to not, you're an admiral, you put your pants on just like I do. I'm enlisted. I was treated with respect from the officers. Like when the commander told the lieutenant to get me coffee, I was flabbergasted, but he wanted to keep me pumped until Wednesday morning. So if the lieutenant didn't mind, but it was, I was treated with respect, and as long as you return that respect, if you offer it and you accept it, it's a good thing.
Yeah, my favorite thing is always been like to listen to people because like as a young officer, you're scared of anybody that ranks you, like especially the colonel, they call him your daddy or whatever. Like so, I used to love when they would make fun of you because you act all different or you're like But as soon as the sergeant major came by, that was the payback because they all did the same exact thing. It's so funny to watch. Like you watch a sergeant major come in, they act even crazier than you did, and you're like, they'd be like, "It's a sergeant major." So it's the rank structure is always interesting. But yeah, but it takes time to learn that thing. Like some of the same people, right? I mean, you see rank, and that's anything and anywhere you're at now. They start from the bottom. They eat, drink, and breathe just like we do. Yeah, and the good ones, don't really forget that. That's the ones I've seen that. So, so let's talk more about what's going on now. The one question I had is like you talked about a couple of them, but just to the audience, I know this, but I already know this, but they don't. But coming back for veterans and being part of the veteran community is a huge passion of yours. Like right now, you're on the board of Stockhands Horses for Healing. You're part of the Delaware Veterans Treatment Court. Like you already mentioned, the Gold Star Family's Memorial Monument, the Blue and Gold Officer for the U.S. Naval Academy, the Advisory Council and Service Academy Select Board for Congressman Troy Balderson. So, like, you're doing all these things for veterans. You're coming back. I know you like saying coming back or going forward. Saying for that I picked up on a couple times. But what drives that passion? Why are you still doing that?
It's self-medication. And it's better than being in the bottom of the bottle. Mm-hmm. But for the grace of God, I probably should have been picked up more than once. Got away with it. Now I primarily have a drink or two at home, rather than going out and getting pie-eyed and doing something stupid like drive. Yeah. I've got a good life, and I've had some troubles with some of my PTSD and whatnot, but I can relate. I founded the Delaware County Treatment Court with Veterans Treatment Court with Judge Maria Emmett almost 6 years, maybe almost 6 years ago now.
I did mention, can you mention what it is exactly, because I didn't say that.
So if you get out of the Marines after being busted down a couple of times and you don't have a good aim in life, you don't know what to do, you're floundering. I hate it when people say they were floundering. Flounder is a fish. You're floundering, running against the rocks. But you're struggling with where you fit, and you get a couple of DUIs and a couple of different issues with the law. You get run in. Well, you come to. We have no hammer. If you have one DUI, it's actually easier, cheaper for the one DUI in my life guy to say, well, I'll just pay my fines, spend the weekend in jail, go on about my business. But the guy doesn't get any of the services he might need. So now, if you're a veteran, we were the 20th or 22nd treatment court in Ohio. There should be 88 of them because there's 88 counties. But in Delaware County, if you get in trouble with the law, and 21 or 23 other counties, because there's more now. If you get in trouble with the law, you go through intake in the court system, they say, have you served in the military? Not, are you a veteran? Because a lot of people that didn't retire don't think they're a veteran. They think they served in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So we were very careful about saying, have you served in the military? Whether it's a day or 20 days or 20 years, did you serve? If the answer is yes, then we let them know that there is this treatment court. It's actually much tougher to go through. You have homework, you have reading assignments, you have public service you have to do, and you have to do the hard work. Not as much as Sable Warrior, although we have a new judge now. Judge Heather moved on, so we're trying to work with the judge to maybe make it mandatory that these guys that are in trouble with the law have to go to Sable Warrior. We believe that will really help. So we've got a good track record, but it's easier to pay your fines, spend the weekend in jail if you're one DUI. So we have a low census. When we get the 2 or 3 or 4 DUI guy, or the anger management guy, or the narcotics, or whatever, those guys go through the program if they say that they will. And they're signing a contract. Like I said, they've got all this homework and all this public service, community service. But we also make sure that they get hooked up with the VSC. Do they need anything? Do they need housing? Do they need help with paying some of the bills? Because those resources are there, and a lot of guys don't know it. So it's self-healing or treatment for me that I'm helping somebody that I could have been in that spot. Tim is our most prolific mentor, has held more mentees than anybody else, so I guess Marines get in trouble more often than.
Oh, yeah, they have.
Yeah.
So Marines, I think, like Joe was, I could see behind the TV, he was like, yeah, we know it, no.
Yeah.
But no, so that's open for anybody that served, whether,
If you
regardless of your discharge.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
You serve.
Right.
And if you're a one DUI guy, and you opt to go through the program, I almost guarantee you're not going to be back in court.
Yeah.
Because of all the things that the benefits that get provided, the benefits that get provisioned from the VA over to, we got a couple guys jobs. We're rebuilding people's lives, and I know we make a difference. And I'm just thrilled that I get to play a part in it.
Yeah, it's amazing when you can help someone help themselves.
And but it's selfish because it helps me too.
No, yeah, 100%. I think every time you work with someone, yeah, there's a part of, you learn something, you see something in yourself, you 100%. It's I don't know if it's self-centered. I don't know, like saying it's, selfish, but I mean, I don't know if I have it that way, but it's still, there's definitely something if you're doing it the right way, for me at least, that you get something out of every time you're helping someone or having a call with someone or because a lot of them reflect on, what I can be better, how I can be better, person, I can be better husband, father, friend. So it is super impactful. And thank you for doing that. I know that's a lot of work. Like, how do you, what, is there like a number you guys have, how many people go through the program and then don't repeat, or like,
We've had, Tim, one failure, speak up.
Yeah.
Two. And we've had a lot of guys through, but we currently only have a census of 3 guys. But each one of those guys is just as important as if we have 20 or 50. We couldn't handle 50. We'd be out, we'd be beating the streets for mentors. But and we if somebody wanted to be a mentor, they can find me on LinkedIn. My contact information is there. And they can call me and say, how do I become a mentor? And I'll point them to Mike Draper, who you've had on the podcast. And we can get them tuned up as a mentor, and we'll be ready for that flood of guys that we hope we never really get, but we'd like to have the guys with lesser problems, lower degrees of problem, because we know that they will probably go on to have 2 if they just get off easy.
Yeah.
And the public defenders could help us. Excuse me, too much water. The public defenders could help us by saying, but it's not in their best interest, I don't think. The public defender's best interest. But if the guy goes through the program, I guarantee you he's going to be exposed to the help that he needs and might be able to change his life.
Yeah, we'll post some stuff up on on our page about that, and how to get a hold of you guys. We'll put a note out there on the page. So I mean, so you say you retired 5 years ago. It seems like you're pretty busy though.
I retired from a paycheck, and
I feel like you're still working. I just want to put that in there. So, I mean, I know you did want to talk about, is this a good opportunity to start talking about Stockhands? What you're doing?
sure.
Even what about the cowboy hat? One thing I did not take into account that they're going to show up the cowboy hat. The headphones do not fit over the hat.
Let's
Is
see.
it? Did it fit over it?
Did it again.
Don't worry. I think Joe hit it like 15 times. Or it was, it doesn't. That's why I got it there. But
No,
I felt bad because you came in all dapper. You had the cowboy boots. I was like, got to take your boots off.
I
Took your hat. We got you back to the normal stuff. And
when I'm representing Stockhands, I like to cowboy up.
there you go.
My wife says I can't wear the costume unless I ride a horse, and Tim says we can fix that, and I'm going to do that. I have a deep and abiding respect for horses. That
I can't tell you costume wise though.
and abiding. It's not
You look
funny.
good. Like you can throw up. So I think some people. I lived in Texas for a long time. Like I am not a person that can work out. I look good. I'm gonna tell you right now. It does not. It just doesn't work. You know what I mean? But you came in. I was like, all right, these guys are yeehaw. So so let's talk a little bit about Stockhands. You're currently on the board. How many years you been doing that?
Just over 1. Tim's been after me for 4 years, 3 or 4 years. He kept saying, you gotta come on board. And I said, Tim, I'm the mayor of the city of Powell. I'm this, that, and the other thing. The gold star, the blue and gold officer, I added after he's going to throw a knife at me. After he asked, but before I accepted, and but I couldn't turn it down. Blue and gold officer, when I was asked to do it, I said I was enlisted, and Chuck said, "Well, you'll be an officer now," and I said, "That's not the point." But it's fulfilling to help a young person that wants to go to the academy, if they're qualified and whatever, help them through the process, which is what I do. I'm not a recruiter. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Sam Naffa. He's finishing his first year, and I really want to visit with him when he gets back and learn about his experience. I saw him when I went there for some training for blue and gold. I went to the academy. I saw him, but you're not allowed to talk to him.
Right.
Plebes aren't allowed to talk to humans, and humans aren't allowed to talk to plebes. And I knew that, so I didn't, and he knew that. So it's very fulfilling to help them get to a point where they can start to realize their goals. Because going to the academy is a goal, but it's not the end goal. I did. I know you asked me about Stockhands, and Tim's probably over there going, "Why is he stuttering all over the place here?" But I do want to talk about the whole Stockhands Memorial for a second. I had never done any real fundraising. I self-funded my first couple of campaigns for city council, and then was offered. A very nice gentleman had hosted an event for me. And I did raise some money there, which his wife matched, which blew me away. But I was done with politics, and I told Tim, when I get rid of two things, I'll come on board. Well, then I added blue and gold. And he sort of beat me every time he saw me. But then when the last council session was over last year before, Tim called me within the hour and said, "So, you're off council?" I said, "No, technically, Tim, I'm on council till the end of the year." He said, "Oh, God," something like that. My wife said, "Quit screwing with him and just tell him you'll do it." So I did. And I wasn't avoiding it. I was just my bandwidth.
Yeah, I understand that.
And then he has put me through the ringer. He is working me like a wrecking mule. He's taking me to prison tomorrow. We go to 4 prisons. I've only been to one so far. It is one of the most rewarding things I've done. These vets in prison, some of them, you know that they're going to be successful ex-cons. Some of them will never get out of jail, and some of them, they might be okay people, but they may not be a successful member of society, but they'll be, they might let ex-con hang over their head for the rest of their life. Was that a buddy of yours?
No, it's okay. I think it's flying around a couple times. We saw it.
I got it.
Good job.
So I went on the board for Stockhands, and recently was told that I had to be the vice president or vice chair of the board, which he said, "You're already doing it, so just shut up and do it." We had some movement in the board, and I said, "Okay." It is one of the most fulfilling things I do. I've taken guys there. I've sent guys there. I've gone there. I haven't ridden a horse yet. I am looking forward to it.
You gotta get mine there.
I am looking forward to it. I have a favorite horse. His name is Stanley. He has anxiety. I can relate to that. And when there's too much commotion in the barn, if he's in a stall, he's breathing. His head's about a millimeter away from the wall, the stall wall. and he's just sitting there weaving. But if there's not a lot of commotion or he's out in the pasture, he's fine. And he's the biggest horse there. Pretty cool. Belgian draft horse.
Yeah, I think I met Tim a couple of years ago, right? It was probably the first time I met Tim. So a little bit more, I'll shout out for Stockhands. So Stockhands Horse for Healing was founded in 2014 based on the belief that horses have the power to heal. They're a 501c3 nonprofit that provides equine assisted therapeutic services to children and adults living with mental, physical, and emotional challenges arising from a wide range of diagnoses, including PTSD, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorder. They're located in Delaware, Ohio, right in central Ohio. They proudly serve their home county and many surrounding counties here in central Ohio community. Their mission to facilitate a positive and non-judgmental environment for participants and their families, to provide a place where human and animal relationships can flourish through effective and creative equine-assisted therapeutic services. And some of the programs they offer, like the horse says, therapeutic ride lessons, peer support groups, veterans groups, and first responder groups. And you have specific nights for both of those, I think, right?
I'd like to take you through some of that if I can.
Yeah.
We have 2 veteran nights Fridays a month. We have 2 first responder nights Fridays again. First responders are doctors, nurses, police, fire, EMT. Because all of those folks see trauma. We have a female veterans group, a combat veterans group. We have 450 individuals that come through the door a week for equine therapy. We don't have a single doctor on board. The horses have the PhDs in therapy. A horse can feel your heartbeat 4 feet away from you. So if you're bringing baggage, you're full of angst, you're angry, you're scared, you're happy, whatever it is, they're aware of it. They're magnificent, except for the minis, which are about as tall as this table. We have 4 minis, and they're real horses. People say, "Oh, is that a pony?" No, it's a horse. I gave Major General, or soon to be Major General John Dreska, was at the National Veterans Memorial for Veterans Day. And he came up and said, "Oh, wow." And John is in the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame in my class. Tim was in a couple of years later class. And General Dreska came up and said, "Oh, can I pet him?" I said, "How about if I put a bridle in and you take him for a walk?" "I can do that." That was like I almost hope that he sees this, but he was like a kid in a candy store, and it was so fun to watch. And he took him around and showed him to people, took him in to see Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus that were there at the event, and he just enjoyed the living daylights out of it and was so happy that he was going to be able to send pictures to his daughter of these little horses. I said, "Come on." We do barn tours, try to work on partnerships with people, but also raise awareness of the fact that we're there. I had a fella neighbor pulled over. I was out overseeding my lawn today because the dogs were killing it. And I'm out front trying to use up the rest of the seed. And a neighbor pulls up. He says, "Do you need any help at Stockhands?" I said, "We sure do." His daughter had volunteered in the past. And I said, if she wants to come back, we're more than happy to have her, because we're adding another arena that's going to triple our arena space. And we will be able to eliminate, or nearly eliminate, hopefully eliminate, our backlog. With 450 people coming through the door and 33 or 4 horses, they get a workout. And they're taking all that angst or stress or whatever it is off of that client, individual. I don't want to say patient, or it's an individual with special needs. Comes in, the horse absorbs that. So not every horse gets to work out every day. So they get to go out in the pasture every once in a while. And sometimes they go on vacation out in the pasture because they are taking a lot of stress off of folks. And people say, well, you don't have any therapists. No, we do. They're horses.
Right.
Well, what are you doing? Is it a pony ride? Well, no, it's not a pony ride because we understand about their occupational therapy, their physical therapy, any of their special needs, their weaknesses, their strengths. We're taking them out on a trail ride, and if Johnny's got a right side problem, we'll bring him up to a mailbox in the middle of the woods, and he has to open the mailbox and get something out of it and do what it says, or carry, whatever it is. And the PATH certified instructors, they know what Johnny needs, what his deficits are or whatever, and we match the horse to the client, to the instructor, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have Matt on my podcast, who was involved in the veterans community for Stockhands. I remember very vividly him talking about that it saved his life. He called, it's killing me that I can't remember the name of the horse, but called him his best friend, and it works. We talked about before earlier with us, and before that, there's all these great places like Stockhands, Saber Warrior. It doesn't matter. Just find what works for you and helps you get better. It's amazing to watch this net of people that are really out there to help whatever veterans need. I know Stockhands deals more with just veterans, except for Wear Fast, but also people. But yeah, it was amazing to watch. Watching the emotion that somebody had talking about meeting a horse and being able to ride a horse and creating a bond with an animal was moving for me. And I really thank Matt for that, being open a couple years ago, telling us about that. So
We had an 88-year-old woman come in with her two daughters. Last week, I think it was, maybe it was this week, she wanted to ride in a carriage, and Tim helped her get in, and they took her around a few times, and she was just really happy about being able to do that. She had mobility issues and maybe some other shortcomings, I'm not sure, but she was, her daughters were over the moon about it.
Mm-hmm.
Tim helped her up. I thought about maybe a little hands with her, but helped her up into the carriage.
we can't cut that out. This is live.
I didn't say any names.
Don't cut it out now. I do have good news about that. I told Tim, my wife is, you should have another volunteer. My wife is, it's always weird how the world works. And my wife doesn't really know who's coming on the podcast. She just knows what's going on. But, she may know I need to share a little bit, but didn't share at all that you guys were coming for Stockhands. And my wife just really this week was like, hey, I was on the website here and I want to do that. She, has always had a local horses around horses when she was younger. So this is how the world works, that you guys are coming in and she's going to be volunteer. So I just want to make sure, Tim, you give her some really shitty jobs, because she said she's getting mucking stalls, all the bad stuff. So just, and then what I'd like to do is she's doing that. If I can come ride by on a horse just to rub it in, that would be really good for me. We can talk about that later. But she said she was going to be listening tonight upstairs watching it, and I'll make sure she comes down so she could meet you guys if she wanted to do that. And hopefully she can help out with the cause. It's an amazing cause.
When we have the new arena finished, and we've got triple the arena space, because our existing arena is arena, stalls, and equipment and other facilities. So it's not thirds, but it's, the existing arena is going to be married, joined with the new arena. So you'll be able to ride between them through a covered tunnel. We're going to have an explosion of clients come in, be able to help a lot more people, but that means we're going to have the horses. Horses are cheap. We're going to have more volunteers. So anybody
Yeah.
that is interested, yeah, let us know.
Yeah, and like I said, this goes to John as well as you, Tim. Whatever you guys need to post on our page about what you guys are going on, feel free to do that. We're all in this together. There's no siloing of how we take care of each other. So and I'll post that stuff. If you guys ever have anything you need, just let me know. We'll gladly put it on there. But yeah, and apparently you don't want horses that are missing eyes. I heard like Tim has very particular, because I had like everybody's trying to donate a horse, but there has to be like
Some
important horses. Yeah, they kind of you have to have really legit horses. Not trying to get rid of a horse that isn't getting that long. Tim doesn't want that horse. Apparently, he told me.
Well,
So
we do have a horse with one eye, Colleen. She drives with Katie, her halflinger.
Yep.
Halflinger twin. They look very similar. She's missing her left eye because she had an infection. Every 3 or 4 hours, Tim was going down to the barn, doing an injection for days. They keep doing that for days, and it wasn't successful. She ended up losing her eye, but she still rides. She still drives because she can rely on Colleen to bumper, and yeah, you're there, okay, good, and she's still productive in the program. And there are a couple. I think it's a couple of police officers from Westerville. I might be wrong about the precise, but a couple of these guys come in just to groom Katie and Colleen. That's what they want to do. We have a lot of good volunteers. Anybody wants to volunteer, please look up stockhands.org and get hold of us and let us know, because when that new arena's out, we're going to be able to really service a lot more people. But with all the people with special needs that we serve, we are the largest veteran service organization in all of Ohio and surrounding states. And we don't have a census of how far that goes,
right.
but we know that we're the largest veteran service serving organization in Ohio.
You guys are doing great things. Always hear about it whenever I'm talking to people. They always say, the guys from Stockhands? I'm like, yeah, we've met, I know. So the last thing we'll talk about, but one thing we didn't want to forget about Stockhands is you got a big event coming up. We'll put this up here. So we've got you want to talk about this? You want me to, you got it?
I'll go.
It's all you.
So we have our second annual Heroes Ball. If anybody knows somebody that ought to be nominated, first responder, we've got some folks from TMS are going to be honored. And you can honor somebody, you can buy a table. We still have a couple tables left. We have a few tickets left. We could use a premier sponsor if somebody's out there and wanted to say, I want to help in a big way. Let's say, Jon Bennehoof, the company I was trying to say, think of a company I could say.
JC down.
The JC organization wants to be a premier sponsor. Your information will be highlighted. You'll be highlighted on the webpage. You'll be recognized there. If you've got somebody that does an outstanding service for the community, you can nominate them to be a hero and buy them a couple tickets and get them there and have a great time. I got to dance with the program director last year.
Nice.
Angie Mack came over to me and said, will you dance with me? My husband just doesn't dance. And I said, that works out because my wife won't dance with me either.
We're running Cowboy though?
Yeah.
All right. Just getting visual there.
Yeah, she was in Cowboy. She was cowboyed up to cowgirl up. But we have, we recognize the heroes. It's a significant fundraiser for us. But and there will be this year there will be an ask at the end of the evening or somewhere in the evening. But there's a very good dinner. The caterer was amazing. The band was very good. We had wonderful weather and danced on the roof that evening. It was a really nice night. My wife enjoyed it. She even enjoyed me dancing with Angie. So,
That's what she told you, but that's
yeah,
fine.
that's probably true.
So I'm proud of the slide I made, but I just looked at it and realized I did not put a date on it.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
I'll modify that and I'll put it on there as well, but it's April 26th. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that. That's why I didn't put it on the date. April 26th. I just was looking at it and I was like,
The location is the National Veterans Memorial Museum. If you have not been there, some of our honorees are on the
I see
slide.
Mike Kelvington and Meg Kelvington down there.
Yeah.
I see him.
West Pointers.
Both former guests.
Mike is an amazing guy. So it's on the 26th. It's in the evening. I think it starts at 6. You'll have to check our webpage to make sure. It's at the National Veterans Memorial. We don't do silent auctions or, pull a number or any of that stuff. It's just come out, have a good evening, a great dinner. Hope to see you there. Drinks, dancing, and we have I won't say who I've been trying to get as a keynote. I was aiming really high. Turns out the White House Correspondents' Dinner is that night, which has wiped out 3 of my potentials. I have a thread on. I had a thread on some very high-ranking people. I'll leave it at that because I hope to maybe get them next year. But now we've redirected. We're working on still working on a keynote speaker, but I think we've got a good shot at this person. We are going to have General Jon, I'm blanking, Tim. Harris, thank you. The TAG, the Adjutant General for Ohio. John's a great guy, a great patriot. You gotta have him on your show if you haven't. We were gonna have Major General Debbie Ashenhurst, but she's otherwise engaged that evening, so her, and I don't mean it to sound this way, but her designee is her vice or assistant director, Judge Sean McCarthy, who I know will be a very interesting speaker. And then we have a keynote speaker to be named yet, but I think we're going to have a really good shot at somebody that will be a very big draw. So it's a shame we don't have them lined up yet. If I did, I would be blabbing it right now because I know people would be rushing to buy tickets.
I hope you can make it work out.
Thanks.
But yeah, we'll continue to promote that. We've already put a post up about the event and the page, and we'll bump it up there so everybody can see it. But yeah, it's a great event, great cause.
We also have a bourbon event later in the year. The Mailer family that owns City Barbecue hosted it last year, and after the event, his wife came over and said, we need to do this again next year. And we were thrilled with that. We have some shoot 'em up stuff that happens beforehand. So if you want to go and shoot 50 caliber or machine guns or
Guns and bourbon, what can go wrong, right? We're speaking of love language over here.
that wasn't
Guns before bourbon. That's just so we're clear.
that was a concern for my wife and me. But I didn't partake in the guns. I did, however, go and have a bourbon, and it was a nice meal. Again, catered, but it was like City Barbecue on steroids, and service was amazing. The venue was amazing. The event beforehand, I understand everybody thoroughly enjoyed it, and that's a lot of fun. We had the Horse Soldier Bourbon. Guys, did you attend last year?
No, we were trying to get it to there, it just didn't work out. But I'm going to try to help you guys with some of the connections we have for this year. Because I know Horse Soldier can't make it. It's great for everyone. I'm going to call in some favors, hopefully, to see if we can give some help with whatever disability that can come,
We
take part.
the stories that were told by the CIA agent, I think is the proper term for them, were amazing. And
I've met him.
all the vets there were just enthralled and really enjoyed it. I'm not sure some of the civilians might not have enjoyed it as much, but it was a great event.
Yeah, I just looked up the picture, I think, of who your guest speaker was. He's one of the ambassadors for Horse Soldier. So great brand. A lot of great guys, a lot of true patriots that started it. Great start. We'll see what we can do to work it out here. I did, before we go though, there was one thing that Joe's going through right now. I was like, I feel like I try to do a lot of research on people. I didn't realize that you were a magician. You took a couple of jokes, but are you really a magician? Because Ola's saying that you're a magician from ETMS.
Wow, Ola. Hello, Ola. I have shown her a couple of card tricks that I cannot recreate at the moment. Oya is one of our heroes this year. Danny and Oya at TMS have been nominated, along with Jeff Lindquist. Do you know Jeff?
I know the name. I've never met him.
He's an interesting character, a machine door gunner. I suggest you try to get him on when he's in Ohio. Oya can help you with that. Very interesting guy. Funny, great big beard, even bigger personality. A lot of fun to be around. I think you would enjoy him.
And the other one was another. This is from one of our friends as well. Have you been on Honor Flight yet?
I have not, and I do and I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I've been to the wall, which was with my family, which probably made it even tougher. But I would love to see the World War II memorial, and I've been invited to John Dreska's second star pinning. He told me I would be invited, I should say, and he said, "I'll do it on a Saturday, so we can Zoom it and you can watch." And I said, "No, dude, if I'm going to your pinning, I'm coming, and I want to tour the Pentagon." He's working in the Pentagon presently, and he said, "Okay." So he's a great chap. If you have a chance, get him too.
I try not to tell people to do any more in my life, but you should take the opportunity to honor flight, especially here in Ohio. It's a pretty amazing organization, just like you guys are. You deserve it. Maybe I can be your chaperone because my dad didn't invite me to go. He didn't go. He's just like, yeah, I don't want my son to go with me, but I'm sort of over it. But if you took me, I could rub it in. I'm always looking at ways to get back in them.
They don't let you go into
But definitely can take advantage of that. It's the organization is great.
Can you give your dad any more crap?
I get a lot more crap. I mean, it's actually less since I haven't been drinking on the podcast. I feel like I'm a little. Are we gonna have a drink finally? Or are you gonna have a drink? Because I haven't been drinking. I don't know if I'm ready to break my drinking fast yet.
Drink water.
What was it? A couple hours?
No, I'm actually 93 days.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna.
No, you can do it.
No,
I'll do it if you do it.
No, I don't want you to do it. You're 90.
No, I mean I don't have these. I
Yes,
just see
it's
where I
the
want to do
taste.
it. That's a whole other joke. I just want to see
You
Joe's
can't do
face.
the toast either.
We'll have them
It
on.
makes me.
But on all seriousness, so another great organization, Honor Flight. They're all over the United States, but I Tim is a volunteer with them. One of our board members is also one of the doctors, Dan Bachman. So please, I know there's a lot of emotion goes into it, but I've watched how powerful it was with my dad. My dad has seen all those memorials by himself, but to be able to go back with your brothers and sisters and take credit. It's something to look at.
I have been urged to do that on more than one occasion, and I will probably knuckle under and do it. Because I understand it's a very fulfilling day. very
Yeah.
rewarding day. And I think I might like to do that sometime.
And I have to put in the plug if we're going to have to talk a little bit about possibly getting to submit an application. I know Adam Carr would want you to submit an application to Saul.
So you're really lining me
Yeah, I'm lining up. I'm calling Adam Carr. I'll start doing stuff. We'll put the. I'm just. I feel like it. Changed my life. It changed Joe's life. Who's here. And then the community you're in, and just the where you're volunteering. I think it can only help you to become a little bit more in touch with what your parts of your life that might not be working. So we'll talk more about it.
Well, if Adam Carr is out there listening, I absolutely want to bring a couple people to intake today.
Yeah.
It's a long trip to do just that, but I think Judge Hemmer would love to go, and there are a couple other people that I think that would benefit from going to observe intake day. I have a feeling we're about to close, and I want to say how much good I think that this podcast does. I just think that you're very good at what you're doing, interviewing and representing, and I appreciate what you do. I don't know how broad the audience is. Do you know how many people are watching?
At
It's hard.
at the moment, you've been up to 11.
So, but then there will be replay.
Yeah, but it's
Right.
hard. We do it live. There's a lot of ways to do it, but it gets out there. It's interesting. I don't have the numbers. We're not really worried about that. It's more like we talked about before, being able to share a story, share a veteran story, and hopefully it touches one person that they can kind of look at someone and say, oh, wow, I feel exactly like John did, and well, I can make it through. And that's kind of how we gauge it. And I know we've been very successful in people that some of our guests like you have reached out. Your story has touched a lot of people. I hear that a lot.
Well, I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. I appreciate the venue. It's really kind of cool here. Tim probably appreciates it too. I'm not sure he's in the rain,
That's how
We didn't give him any crayons, so.
yeah. He was able to get the shoes off by himself a bit, so this is still all right. We're okay with it. But no, I had a couple more questions for you. We have hit the 2 hours, but I'll just ask one more question. So, and then before I do that, thank you for coming on. Thank you for, I'll say this again. Thank you for your service, your military service. Thank you for all those people that didn't thank you when you came home. It's very important, I know, for the Vietnam veterans to welcome home. It's very important, and obviously, thank you for what you continue to do for the veteran and warrior classes, as well as other people and all the things you're involved in. It's inspiration to see your story, to know you. I've heard many things about you. It's amazing to have you on. I want to thank you for all the things you do, and obviously, thank you for coming down here and sharing your story with our audience.
Thank you.
So one final question I have is, this is, a question I ask everybody, and it does deal with mental health. So with all the focus and attention that's on, the veteran or warrior class, mental health, suicide crisis, what do you think, your opinion, is not being done that needs to be done?
There's a lot of resources out there that are available that we don't know about. So we need to do a better job. When a guy gets out of the service, he can feel lost because he's been surrounded by mission and involved in mission with brothers and or sisters. That was my DEI politically correct moment. But you get out of the service and all that structure's gone. All that hierarchy and organization and regiment and schedule and so on. And if you've got any struggle at all, that can become a problem. And there are guys that go back into service because they can't handle civilian life, because, at least for me, nobody said, and I'm a special case, I got out early because of my dad. So maybe there was resource available? No, that's bullshit. There wasn't. And I don't know that there is now. There ought to be some resource that does a transitional thing for every service member. You're going to go out and you need to have financial skills, and you need to have interview skills, because you didn't interview to get into the service if you could stand up.
Especially when brain did that.
Yeah, well, as long as you, no, I won't say that. You, for the most part, officers are a little different, but not a lot different. You go into the service, you get shot out of a cannon when you're done. And for the most part, I think that's improved, but not enough. I know guys that are getting up now that they don't have a preparation or a cheat sheet to go by, or, you're gonna need interview skills and financial skills and coping skills, and some of that stuff could be your last week in the service or something. And I think that would help a lot, but then being more in everybody's face about what is available, because I went and got therapy, but nobody ever said, or if they did, I didn't hear it, go to the VA and sign up file for your benefits, because 50 years later, I walk into the vet center, and after 2 sessions, the doctor says, you've definitely got PTSD. And they go, well, it was a long time ago. Yeah, but, and then I said, am I really that transparent? And she said, I've been doing this a long time. Dr. Berger, thank you so much. And thank you, and thank Joe, if that is his real name.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's no one caught that perspective for, and I like it, because getting out of the military, I have like 3 things are lost pretty quick. Is you lose your friends, you lose your job, right, and then you lose your a lot of people lose their identity. And I mean, those things are those 2 things. If you can't get them back on track fast, if you're already in a downward spiral, you're gonna bottom out of it faster. So yeah, being able to do that. I do know that this transition stuff that's out there. It's a lot of it with anything I have now is like I try not to blame people or the institutions, but they're out there. So if you're a soldier, fine, they're out there. You got to do it and listen to what's going on and do that. But yeah, it could always be better about making sure they understand that, because how I for many years my identity was always I was still so hung up on being an Army officer that I never let that go when I got out. And then when I tell people I'm a paint rep, this doesn't have that same you know what I mean? It's so that can hit a lot of people, and for a long time that really bothered me about that my identity is tied to something that is not who I am, right? So being able to ready people, service members to come out is huge, but it's on the service member to take it, whatever's out there, and take advantage of it.
You just said something that made me encapsulate in my head what I was trying to say. And you need, in all aspects of life, but especially as a outgoing service person, you need to advocate for yourself. And that might be a big lesson that people need to, because nobody drills that into you in the service. Hey, you need to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
No. So I think that's an important point too.
It's a good point. You get what you need, and then by taking care of yourself, you can take care of others. I have it, so you have to save yourself. Well, I do want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing in your support animal, Tim. Thank you for your being candid and sharing your story. And again, thank you for your service. Welcome home, and thank you for everything you do for the veterans community. It's inspirational. So we're trying to hit the thing. So I'll give you a hug when we get done. So tonight, we'll before we sign off, we'll get to the most unfortunate part of every night is when we honor the service member who unfortunately took their life. Tonight, we're going to honor U.S. Army Major Troy Don Wayman, 44,
Troy took his life on January 16, 2016 at his home in Nolanville, Texas. Troy was born on February 7, 1971 in Lincoln, Nebraska, and was raised in Ainsworth, Nebraska. After graduating from high school, Troy enlisted in the Nebraska Army National Guard as an armored cannon crewman. During his enlistment, Troy attended the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and was commissioned in the United States Army as an army officer. During his military career, Troy deployed in support of Operation Desert Shield, Operation Desert Storm, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. At the time of his death, Troy was assigned to the 1st Army Division West at Fort Hood, Texas. Troy was a diehard Nebraska Cornhusker fan, but occasionally supported the Texas Longhorns to make his wife Ruby happy. Troy was a kind and loving man and was always willing to help those in need. Troy loved being a soldier. He loved his country. He loved his family and friends. Troy is survived by his wife Ruby, stepfather and stepmother Charles and Teresa, aunts Sherry, Lonnie, and Mary, uncles Wes, Larry, and Jim, and numerous other relatives and friends. And again, if you or someone you know is in crisis and might be considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Line at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or text 838-255 or chat online at veteranscrisisline.net/chat. And to end out episode 72, we've got the final quote here. The tie-in. I'm sure you've heard of Temple Grandin. Great movie. So a quote from her says, "Horses can help us to develop a sense of trust, empathy, and compassion." So I thought that was a good quote to end with. So again, I'd like to thank you for coming in for episode 72. I'd like to thank everybody that's listening, and we'll see everybody in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Troy, for your service. Thank you, Troy's family, for your sacrifice. God bless you.